Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave for a very early Wednesday. Yeah, hey, have a happy Wednesday in your life. It's a nice little Wednesday over here. It's nice and dark too, so I got a full night's sleep and ready to go for some Bitcoin price action, following up from yesterday's short-term downside targets being met at 11,400-ish region. Then we actually exceeded that level, taking out the medium-term time frame, which then did initiate that next set of targets all the way down to 11,000, of which we did see a move down to 11,100. So I suppose the real question right now is it over, or is the downside over maybe as well? So we'll get into that in this video. Of course, we'll be covering traditional markets as well, and let's now look at the Krown chain application, which can be found at app.krownchain.net. And what do we see over here? We do see that the open interest actually did spike up a little bit yesterday, so that is open interest going up while price action coming down. Not good for the boo laws there. Bitcoin dominance also kind of staying more or less steady there, which is interesting because we didn't really see alts fall, if that is correct, more versus US dollar. Everyone kind of just kept parity. So we should actually take a look at a few alts versus Satoshi, just see what the overall market is doing right now. Let me just make sure that I'm recording. Okay, I am recording and the microphone's working. That's excellent. And the fear and greed index actually, that's bizarre. The fear and greed index actually did tick up 1 point from 75 to 76, which is rather interesting as well. Let's go take a look at the data tab. I'm curious to see what everything is looking right now. Do we see anything out of the ordinary? No, not really. Pretty much par for the course across the board with respect to the global funding rate and also the fear and greed index, kind of holding the same range and more or less coming back down to parity for the global funding rate as well. So not anything to add there. So let's actually go into the price action charts right now. Right in over here, and well, I suppose I'll spoil the surprise right there. So yesterday we did say, based off of the hidden bearish divergence, I think when Bitcoin was trading like right around a little bit above 11,700, very likely to come back down to the 11,400-ish region, of which that did happen. But here's where things actually changed around a little bit. Bitcoin actually did break this area right here, the 11,400-ish region with the 4-hour dildo closure. Or if you're using a 2-hour, I think it closed. I think it closed like right below, yeah, right on that next one right there, and that did initiate that next move down to what I was saying is about 11,000, and we did pretty much get there, 11,100 to be exact on GDAX right here, which is around the top side of this liquid zone. Now I have this liquid zone to be exact somewhere between about 10,950 to 11,050 right here. So it is about $100 range, but it does have great implications with the long-term time frame. So here's where things get a little more diabolical, and where I need to be very careful with the way that I express these ideas, because apparently they can get very easily misheard. It's very interesting when you go into a video and like there's a comment and someone will say, "Man, you were so fucking wrong about this," and then like the next comment is like, "You actually called this exactly right." It's like, what the fuck? That's the point where you really realize it's not a good idea to be reading YouTube comments, because what the fuck, man. Anyways, for the people who happen to give a fuck, and for the people who do make an effort to listen, so here's what I'd be saying about this right now. It does look like Bitcoin probably tests this region once again, maybe all the way back down to the bottom end of this liquid zone, which I'll just refer to as like 10,009. I won't say 10,950 just because it's too much of a fucking mouthful. And more importantly, if we go over here into the daily, we did create a downtrend with yesterday's closure. This is going to be your next lower high, and because we did take out the low of the 11th of August, we do have continuation. So I would put the I would put the biases here on coming down a little bit more in the short term, medium term again. Actually, now long term, does that change anything for me? Technically no, because as I've been saying for the last 3-4 weeks, it's not until we break back down below this, we'll call it like 10.9 or $11,000 region. I guess we'll call it 10.9. Just to not get mixed up with my words here, but as long as that holds, I don't really change anything from my from my perspective between the upside and the downside. Again, looking at the long-term region up here towards we'll say 12,000 or 10.9, a nice $1,000 range, and anything between there is just more or less a range. And it's not until we break above or below where there's a big change of behavior on the long-term time frames. But there are the etchings of that right now, as this has officially reversed here. So I would be looking for another move to the downside at the very least, and that is in line with momentum oscillators as well. I do believe we do see daily Stokes still nosediving here, in fact, and going to absolutely shatter this trend line. So Well, actually, it will have a chance. It will have a chance to regain it today, I suppose. But failing to get back above the 21 exponential moving average today at the very least, which is pretty much right around about 11,500, that will inevitably come further down. And more importantly, with that, we do still see. We actually no. Yes. Actually, this is really important right here too. So this potential hidden bullish divergence that we're looking at back and over here, which was unconfirmed, is obviously going to be massively destroyed here as well, because now we are making new lows on this on this time frame, and RSI is making new lows with it as well, as you'd expect. So there no longer can be hidden bullish divergence on something like this, because the trend is quite literally to the downside here. And more importantly, well, if you're familiar with hidden divergences, then you cannot have hidden bullish divergence, say, in a downtrend, and you cannot have hidden bearish divergence, say, in an uptrend. They always come on the same side of the trend, and that is usually a way that you can call people out really fast, because apparently that's always a point of contention, just something that I've noticed quite often. Anyways, looking at this right here, I would essentially be looking for the 4-hour time frame range to actually give a pretty good insight on this current short-term time frame range. Let me put back on the drawing tools right here. And while I do think that things naturally come back down and test around the $11,000 base, we'll call it, I will be wrong on that. My bias will be wrong on that if Bitcoin can close a 4-hour dildo, especially above, let's call it 11,400, which is naturally going to be where the 4-hour 200 simple is going to be lining up in the next tick or two, which is essentially where the bottom side of this blue box territory is as well. So if Bitcoin could get back above there, I would look for a rally to extend all the way back up towards the 11,650 to 11,700 liquid zone right here. But overall, I don't really think that's happening right now. Doesn't mean that it can't happen. Again, I admittedly give my opinion on price action, which is irrelevant. It means absolutely nothing. I do not trade my opinion. I trade technical analysis here. So, while I don't necessarily think that would happen, if it did happen, then I'd be looking for another like $250 move to this area right here, and that would start to look a little bit wonky on the daily. But fair enough. Might as well prepare for for other things if it is possible. And at the end of the day, in a game of infinite possibilities, at a maximum number, or sorry, at an infinite number of tries, it will happen sometime at least. So looking at this right here, let's go over to the 2-day now and see if there's anything of note as well. And the 2-day also did take out that last local low that we did see in that region, and that 21 exponential moving average is pretty much right around that $11,000 target as well. So a lot of things kind of lining up with that, and also we do see that 2-day Stokes are coming down very aggressively here. Very aggressively. There will be a trend line that actually is very important, that actually has caught the March lows and the more recent lows in July, early July, before this major liftoff. So I'm talking about this major low right here, and then this major low right here before massive move to the upside. We will be hitting that at some point, but that would also imply that we potentially have a lot more downside before that actually does get hit. So where could Bitcoin end up if it does break the downside of the long-term range? Well, it's pretty much the same areas as we kind of laid out before. It's kind of hard not to look below 10,000, as I've been saying, towards 9,800, 9,900. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be looking at the gap, which is traded somewhere around like 97, I think it was. 9,700-ish region. So that's all within the same territory. So if Bitcoin does really break down, that's always going to be an area of interest here. However, I would be looking for a bounce along the way at about 10,500-ish region. Could that bounce turn into reversal? Yes, very possible. However, would need to get back above at the very least 11,000 on a daily closure, and then we could potentially talk about a reversal. But until that happens, breaking below 11,000 very likely does initiate a move, probably somewhere down around 9,700 itself, as we do see CMEs trading at about $100 premium on spot price action. So perhaps, if it actually does go for the gap fill, then that would put spot price action somewhere more or less around 9,600-ish region. So perhaps this is a little bit too aggressive right here, but you will notice that 9,600 is actually going to be where the 200 exponential moving average on the daily is. Probably in the next tick or two. It'd be right here, so you can kind of align this, and seeing as it's been grinding up how many dollars per day? Yeah, about $30 per day over the last week. then we probably be reaching that 9,600-ish level about by end of week, actually. So very interesting stuff right there. If Bitcoin does actually break down, I would have my eyes on those levels. But for right now, I'd still be playing the ranges that kind of led them out. It's not anything too glorious or too crazy here, but very likely another move back down to the downside liquid zone, probably another bounce there, and then just the bounce, reclaim a relevant level, of which I would argue that the most relevant level right now is essentially 11,400 for at least some medium term upside continuation. Well, we'll obviously have to see that one in real time, but for right now, let's go take a look at the low-term time frame momentum oscillators. Is anything suggestive of a bounce here? Well, not quite. Not quite. 4-hour Stokes still nosediving, and will remain to the nosedive, or will remain nosediving as long as we're essentially following this trend right now. So as long as Bitcoin's closing this next 4-hour dildo below 11,500-ish region, then yes, it will naturally remain to the downside. We don't see any sort of divergences to be spoken about at home over here. Yeah, no, nothing. Not even regular bullish divergence there. So, likely to give another try. At that point, if it does come down to 11,000, you might actually see some regular bullish divergence come in this region right here. But for now, not visibly apparent. Let's go see what the other lower term timeframes would suggest as well. 3-hour going to be showing actually momentum turning to the upside if we do close this next 3-hour dildo above 11,300. So maybe Bitcoin does get some short term testing to the upside once again at like 11.5 region. Can it overtake that, or is the real question? Because I don't really look at any move between these two major areas as as really relevant. Just kind of filling out space. And let's see what the 2-hour says. Does it agree? It says momentum remains to the upside as long as we essentially hold these lows right here at about 11,200-ish region. No divergence to be spoken about as well here, and we just actually got the new tick. So hold on, what time frames did we get a new tick on? The 2-hour and maybe the 4-hour as well? Yeah, we did get a new 4-hour actually too. So you actually see how this changes quite a bit. So if you notice that like a minute before that, when we were just talking about that, the turning point for the 4-hour was all the way up here at like 11,500. With the next tick, it actually moves all the way down to 11,300. So perhaps this could kind of change things around for myself. Just looking at this right now, does Bitcoin play off another move to like 11.3 and then try to blast up again to to that 11,500-ish region? Possibly yes, or is it 11.5? Yeah, it is kind of around 11.5, isn't it? Possibly yes, but again, anything lower than especially 11.7 is just another lower high on this time frame, probably setting up for another test to the downside over here. I also want to check out the secondary charts that we've been following, looking at the Bollinger Bands. The bottom side Bollinger Band did catch price action on a daily closure, so it actually did work. The same sort of thing that we were looking for yesterday, looking at the daily Bollinger Band getting a negative slope on the 20 simple, and then selling off on top of it while breaking a very relevant level below 11.5. Yes, did initiate that next move down to 11.3. or wherever that was kind of sitting at, with a wick all the way down to that 11,000. I just call it that $11,000 target. It's close enough, although I do think that it's very likely it probably gets swiped again. My opinion is, or what I want to see from that is the actual reaction from that region if it does give another test back down here. That's the next key critical thing that I'd be looking for on this price action. Anyways, let's see. What else do we want to check out? Do we want to look at entropy today? Probably not. I don't think it's. We can do a quick look at it. It's actually rising right now, so this is technically or suggested to be more random price action rather than trending price action. So that would go obtuse to what I said earlier, that Bitcoin has put in a downtrend here, but it quite literally has. I don't know any other way to read this. This is your high. This is a lower high, and then continuation below this prior low. That is by definition a continuation drive. So fair enough. And this is all while entropy is rising, which is strange. You'd expect entropy to be falling down if this is to continue in trend-like fashion. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one. I don't know what to make of that right now. And also a tool that I don't have enough experience with either to really have like a genuine history to be going off of, just kind of going off of theory there more than anything else. Anyways, looking at this right here, I do want to put the perspective once again on the weekly, as I do still think that the weekly is the most important chart for Bitcoin, as well as the monthly, which are both going to be closing in less than a week. Obviously, the weekly is going to be closing on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. The monthly will close one day after that, as I check my calendar over here. And if the weekly does close below 11,500, that would, by definition be, Jesus Christ, is that going to be another fucking massive fake out in this region? Because this is the same region as we've been saying that Bitcoin's been getting rejected from ever since January 2018. Let's go back to this chart that we followed on over here and look at the same thing. I think it's just more obvious. Let's put it on long scale as well, I suppose. And in the last few weeks, Bitcoin actually had several closes above that region, even getting opens and closes in that region as well. Well, right now it's it's definitely looking droopy, like it wants to close below it, and it will close below it with any sort of a weekly closure below 11,500. And if that does happen, that will break structure. And well, I would probably be looking for a move down to the 10 simple at the very least at that point. And the 10 simple is all the way at 10,500, which does match up with another pretty critical area as well. I believe we showed it on the daily. It's gonna be the daily 89 exponential moving average, and also that long-term horizontal coming in that region as well from the not the July highs, but the February highs right here. Yeah. But overall, if Bitcoin does close the weekly below this region, it would be difficult to not look for a greater pullback overall. Looking at the monthly as well, it is a little bit problematic here, but still overall in the formation of continuation. Anything above 10, 10.9. Yeah, 10.9. So the bottom side of that liquid zone that we looked at on the long-term time frame range on the daily would be considered a failure as well, and probably does insinuate a test all the way back down below 10,000 actually. But again, right now we have another 5 days left. Yeah, 5 days left in the trading month. That's a fucking eternity. So I do think that while it's important to prepare for these sorts of unique situations, it is good to put things in perspective as well, because a monthly is still more or less long-term healthy. So I really need to separate all my views here into the short-term time frame, medium time frame, and high and macro time frame. Short all the way up to medium, and even to an extent the high-term time frames are bearish. However, high-term time frames are actually still fine here. But when we're talking about a monthly, we have to look at monthly price action. And monthly price action would, it takes, I don't know, quarter to a half of a year typically to play out, sometimes even a year. So, looking at something like this, just because we'd have somewhat of a doji to close on this monthly, is that super problematic? No, it would still actually air the probabilities on the side of the upside, as momentum oscillators still seem to agree that the upside is, is more likely here. Monthly Stoke's going to be getting back into the bullish control zone probably on next month's close, and will remain to the upside, by the way, just for perspective here, as long as Bitcoin price action remains above about $9,000. So still, again, we've seen crazier things in cryptocurrency land, obviously, but I would say that is looking likely with 5 days to go. Looking at monthly, hey, get the fuck off there. Looking at monthly RSI, still looks constructive to me as well. So overall, don't really have anything to add there. This would be looking like it's going to, over time, test back into the bullish control zone. And on top of that, we do see that the monthly Joule has been giving you a holder long signal ever since April of this year. So that is back around not March, April right here, and then all the way through. So that gives you all the way through 6,500 to kind of where we are right now, actually. So still perspective on that. And then of course, because it's not just a monthly closing, it's also the bi-monthly closing as well. I mean, this is any sort of a bi-monthly close above 10,800. I'd be looking for overall continuation to the upside on the very high term time frame. So any sort of downside would very likely be lived out, maybe at most back down to that gap fill. If that condition is met again, still got 5 days left to actually confirm this for one. But same things here as well on the momentum oscillators, looking at monthly or bi-monthly Stokes, looking more or less good. I suppose, although not all that much history. And looking at bi-monthly RSI, same thing here as well. Actually will officially get into the bullish control zone with any sort of a closure above 11,800. Looking a little bit unlikely right now, but again, 5 days left to go and that's $350 away or $450 away. That's a fucking sneeze for Bitcoin, I suppose. So it's a little bit too early to really call something like that. It's more so in the back of my mind's eye as this price action kind of fills itself out. So for now, if I did have to call this one right now, I suppose I would be looking for another move to the downside just based off of momentum right now. But I will be wrong on that, and let's kind of denote an area right here. Whoops, let's go back to the GDAX chart. Let's denote an area right here, and we can actually move this liquid zone down. It doesn't need to be between 11,430 and 11,470. We can actually move it down to between the 200 simple and the top and the bottom side of where it was before. So it actually gets that last prior low right here, and that would be between about 11,4 even and 11,430. So if Bitcoin does work its way back above here, especially on a 2-hour or 4-hour delta closure, I would be looking for extension at the very least to 11.6 probably, or sorry, 11.550. There's a small set right here. This is very short-term time frame bullshit right now. Let me just make sure that we're in the TA nerd session. Yeah, it's about 20 minutes in, so all the fucking spoon boys have clicked off now. Okay, great. All right, excellent. Let's so let's get down to the nitty-gritty of this. If you are on the very if you are on the very short-term time frames, that would probably be a tradable event back up there, 11.4 all the way back up to 11.550. This is obviously very short-term time frame, so realistically, it's going to be rather quick play if I had to, guess. Above 11.550 on a 2-hour closure, and I'd probably look for another reproach of 11.650 to 11.700. This is just very, 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 very short-term time frame stuff, though. It's obviously these are very small ranges to begin with, so it's probably not even that helpful for most people, but all going to be spun about by this area right here. So 11.4 is important for not just the short-term time frames, but also the medium-term time frames as well. So, if Bitcoin were to take it out short-term, I'd be looking for a move up here, another $150 to the upside. Medium-term, I'd probably be looking for another $100 extension on top of that. So play out a range between these two blue boxes right here. Until that happens, though, I'd have to be looking at this area as potential next high being put in before driving back down towards that $11,000 region, maybe even all the way down to 10.9 at the same time, which looks more likely from the medium-term time frame perspective. Which reminds me, now we actually haven't looked at the 12-hour here. 12-hour Stokes are actually north and have been pointing north this whole way, which is kind of a little bit nasty. They've been pointing north ever since this high right here, which is kind of like very nasty. So Bitcoin sells off just about $700, and it's been going up the whole way. That's not a good sign, like at all. Let's look at the reverse Stochastic indicator, and it looks like it looks very obvious right here, actually. So if Bitcoin does close this next 12-hour dildo above 11.3, probably does get another test to the upside, at least on the short term. By the same token, I would be looking at that as a continuation point for another drive back down to probably 10.9 if it does get another drive back down, somewhere between 10.9 and $11,000. No divergences to be spoken about here at all either, although there is a channel that Bitcoin's been operating in, I suppose. Is it visible on the 12-hour, though? I know that we identified it on the 10-hour. You could say that it's actually broken right now, depending upon how you draw it. Do you want to draw it like this? Do you want to draw it like this? Well, that's the problem with these sort of diagonals. But the thing is that this actually was working. That did have 3 tests right there. This one actually did break it. So I'm more hesitant. I'm actually more likely to say that no, this is broken. This is not a valid idea anymore, and very likely to at least try the other way, of which it kind of already did, I suppose. Anyways, I suppose this is also a follow-up of the 12-hour Joule sell signal as well, coming in on the 17th to 18th of August. This one getting a big fat drive right there. This one gave you the signal so it gave you a decent signal right here, conservative signal right here. So I'm going to take this conservative one on this just to see what it produced. This was 18th of August at 7 a.m. my time, and that is going to be right here. So it didn't get the ultimate high for you. It did get the $12,150 high, and from top to bottom now, that's only an 8.75% move, which does seem a bit muted, but that's also $1,000 move on price action. So there you go. And I'd be more akin to say that that's probably played out by now. Could he get another drive to the downside? Yes, of course, but still, that's a pretty nice move. Anyways, let me take this off, and we should actually go check this out on the daily as well. So where does the daily momentum turn back up to the upside? Yeah, exactly. What would be your last lower high right here? So as long as Bitcoin's below that, momentum will remain to the downside, and that does make sense from a momentum oscillator perspective. That as long as we maintain the lower high structure, probably more likely to test some downside than not. And as you can see on the daily Stokes, we still got some room down there. 2-day going to be even more aggressive here, and 3-day going to be even more aggressive than that. Going to be getting back down below the critical zone for the first time in a while, and actually playing out the same trend line, governing our high since February 2020. So that governed this high right here at about let me take these off, this high right here, and then this high more recently in May and June of this year before this long-term consolidation. Now let me let me kind of focus in on this for a second, because this one over here obviously was a major massive dump. I mean, that was phenomenally epic in the best and worst of ways, absolutely exciting and terrifying at the same time. And then this one over here actually just led into a long-form consolidation where Bitcoin price action came down, about $1,000 or 15%, a little bit more than $1,000, $1,500 it looks like, but 15%, and then eventually works its way onwards and upwards to the upside. So it's not a death sentence in and of itself, saying that like we're going to reverse all into new all-time lows. It's just saying that probably going to spend its time figuring itself out, going sideways. Looking at 3-day RSI, this is a bearish RSI, or at least it's not necessarily bearish RSI, but it looks like it very likely is going to come further to the downside. Any sort of a 3-day close below 11,800 will remain that momentum coming down, and probably line up for another test of the 21, which by the way is right around that $10,900 region. And the 3-day RSI does have regular bearish divergence, and usually my sort of target for that is going to be somewhere around the 21. And this one it got close yesterday, but not all the way. It's technically right now at about 10.8, and will probably on the next tick reach up to 10.9. So that'd be right smack dab at the bottom side of this liquid zone right here, the long-term one. And I do think that is rather likely. So fair enough. Anyways, okay, let's go check out some other markets. Let's go see what traditional markets are they still making new all-time highs upon new all-time highs upon new all-time highs upon new all-time highs upon new all-time highs. What are we looking at fucking crypto for? Jesus Christ, man. Okay, so you can trade cryptocurrencies, or you can trade NASDAQ, and by trade I mean just hodl, and all you had to do is hodl since March. Now, admittedly, I was probably bearish down here. I was bullish right here, though, at April, calling major long-term lows and probably new all-time highs from there as it started to crawl its way upwards and onwards. I'd still be bullish on this one. There's nothing bearish about this chart at all whatsoever. I'd be looking for new all-time highs to be printed probably today, as we said, coming into yesterday and the day before, of which we got a new all-time highs all those days. This one is starting to get really, 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 really frothy here, but do not underestimate the last drive of a parabolic blow off top. That is one thing that I learned in traditional markets from my mentor, and that I was retold with Bitcoin to 20,000. So looking at this over here, technically speaking, I don't really have any major, I can look at Fibonacci extensions here, but I don't really have any like major dependable ways to get this. That would suggest 12,150. We could look at expected moves, but as always, I mean, expected moves, we can't really take the probabilities on them as, at face value. What we have to do with them is we have to look at the forecasting range for something like this, and that's what's going to actually get it, or if something's going to get it, that would be it. And that would show the first deviation somewhere around 11,950. So if it does get up there, that would be a point, probably a point of pullback. I expect to see the second deviation around that next Fibonacci target, which is 12,150. What do we see here? Second deviation is about 12,150, a little bit above there. So that'd be a damn good area for a nice turn down as well. And 12,400 is the third standard deviation. Does that line up with anything else over here? Actually, yes, the 4.236 extension. So that's really the only thing that I have to get on these things. On these things now. Does it reach up all the way to there? I don't have a strong opinion on this. My strong opinion on this is that it is bullish AF. It is bullish AF in a technical term, as long as it's especially above, as long as it's above all major moving averages, it's bullish as fuck to me, which would be about 11,450, and that would also kind of be your last sort of stutter step right there too. So I would, I would be looking at that area still relevant. The problem is that doesn't help with risk management, and that's the very dangers of trading a parabolic blow off top potentially, is that, well, where do you manage risk on it? Because it's naturally going to be very, 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 very wide if you want to participate in a rally like this. Well, that would be all the way down at 11,400 for myself, and that's quite a bit of risk if this one were to reverse from here. It doesn't look like it's going to reverse from here. Maybe some short-term back down to 11.7 or 11.690, but I'd be looking for it to bounce off that region. Yeah, and it does look like it just put in a small base right here. So, if it does want to trade down, 11.690, but I'd be looking for that to bounce it up at least short-term. Looking at E-mini futures for SPY, what do we see here? We see continuation patience is the name of the game. And same thing on this one as well. New all-time highs upon new all-time highs upon new all-time highs being printed like like it's fucking magic. And monthly is going to be closing at an extremely strong level if it closes anywhere above 3,400, which right now we are, for reference, we are 34.42 and a quarter. Again, a lot can change between now and Monday, but as of right now, looking pretty damn good. We can look at expected moves for this one as well and come up with some points of interest to the upside. Don't really have any extensions there on that particular one. Hey, get the fuck off there. All right, let's try this. Let's try this. First deviation coming in where? Coming in 3,500 even. Nice round even number as well. Second deviation showing 3,550. Third showing at 3,635. So if things were to get a little bit crazy, you know, a little bit more parabolic, those are the areas that I'd be keeping an eye on for right now. You know, short term, if it comes back down to 34, 32 and a half, I'd probably be looking for that or at that as an opportunity. Something like this. Yeah, it looks like it's trying to consolidate at a high level, similar to what you just saw on NASDAQ futures right here in this little segment. If you can kind of map this one out somewhat as just, well, if anything, it's probably an ascending triangle with higher lows and same sort of highs right there. Same sort of formation that you see kind of popping up right here. If it were to come back down to that level, obviously I'm getting to more crystal ball type shit right there, but the market is in rotational. The market is in rotations right now, as it has been, as we've been saying it has been ever since, you know, the last, well, I mean, technically like the last 10 years, but relevant for what we've been talking about over the last few months. And I'd be looking for E-minis to be rotated up next after NAS. Looking at Nifty 50, how these guys doing, how the old Indians doing. Looks like still more. I mean, we've got new all-time high, or sorry, not new all-time highs, but got new highs on this rally yesterday. I'd still be looking more or less north, I suppose. I don't see any real reason to be bearish on this one, especially as long as it's above this level right here, 11,285. What about Microsoft? How did it do yesterday? Back up to the top, as we said, and I'd probably be looking for it to. I'm sorry. I'm starting to sound way too fucking arrogant today. Maybe it's getting to me that all the people are starting to misinterpret what I'm saying, so I need to say it myself. No, it's fucking stupid, man. Jesus Christ. Can't control how people hear you anyways, so might as well not care. Looking at this area right here, I do think that's gonna break to the upside. I do think that it's still gonna move up to 233 and a half. Apple obviously is the first mover, and I do believe that Apple is probably topped here actually. It's either topped or very close to topped. I do think that the ultimate high on this one's going to be 525. That is, by the way, the 4236 Fibonacci extension. And right now, seeing as we did take out yesterday's low, or sorry, the day prior's low, I'd be looking at this as a potential reversal. I actually do think that Apple's probably topped. It might grind out this area a little bit more, maybe back up towards 506 and a half, maybe even in guns all the way for 525. But I do think that this one's going to put in its top probably first before everything else, just because it's the leader to the upside. Same thing with Tesla as well, and Tesla had a very similar interplay yesterday too. We did come all the way back down to our target yesterday of 1950, did bounce from that target obviously as well, back up to about 2025. I don't really have anything to add on to here that I already haven't said. If we do see a closure below about not yesterday's, but 24th of August low, which is 1933 and a quarter, any sort of a close below there, I would be calling, at least a medium term time frame top with targets extended back down to like 1700 and maybe beyond, maybe even a long term top as well. But for right now, for perspective, weekly is, well, weekly actually doesn't look all that hot. What about the monthly? Monthly looks pretty good though. Yeah, monthly still looks really, really good. So again, depending upon how this one closes out, I maybe I just get even more bullish. I mean, let's look at Apple on this tip as well. Yeah, same thing here. It's hard to be bearish off a chart that looks like this long term. So maybe it's more of a short term thing. If those conditions are met, that would be a little bit more enlightening, I suppose. But overall, long-term time frame is still looking good here. Same thing with Bitcoin as it is, although these are obviously much more strong to put in perspective. And let's just look across the board here. Triple Qs, new all-time highs. What about NYA? New highs on that run that we spoke about from yesterday, which I'd still be looking for it to rise up more, probably back up to 13,300. Russell 2000, same thing, looking for a move back up to 1585, and probably works its way upwards and onwards from there. I don't have any major issues with these charts. The only chart that I have a major issue with is this one right here. Fucking England. England sucks. Sorry, you guys don't suck, but your stock market very much sucks. I mean, when the rest of the world is rallying in the way that it is right now, and you're doing something like this, that is not a sign of strength. Now, again, rotations do also apply for world markets, so we probably do see this one get a move to the upside. But as the saying goes, the junk rallies last, and according to the current rotational numbers, this one probably is going to be one of the last, if it does get a rally. Looking pretty pathetic here, and on a monthly, looking not so inspiring either. In fact, this just looks like another lower high on a monthly, which is not going to be good. So fair enough. I don't really spend too much time looking at a chart like this. So, take it with a grain of salt. But I do think that it is very problematic that it's not following the rest of the world while everyone else wants to rally to the fucking moon and beyond. Looking at the euro dollar, what do we see over here? Still grounded at the 200 exponential moving average on the monthly. What about on the weekly? Weekly still looking like a potential top being put in. Yeah, 4 hour looking a little bit droopy here. Probably does move back down towards the base at 117.5 short term. So I'd be looking for short term down. Long term, like a few months out, I do think that it puts in a major high here, but any sort of a weekly close, I'd be looking at nothing less than a weekly on this one, to be very exact, by the way. Any sort of a weekly close above 119.5, and I would happily change around my views on this one, looking for drives all the way back up to 1.25 actually. So big move there if that would happen. I don't think that that's going to particularly happen, but if it did, then that's what I'd be looking for. What else do you want to look at? I suppose now is some time for some highly altruistic cryptocurrency coins. What could they be? Let's go look at Mr. Buteral. What are you doing, you piece of shit? Or sorry, you piece of beautiful farming technology, or whatever the fuck they're doing with it now. Okay, so we did hit our target yesterday of 385. Obviously exceeded it quite a bit as well. Jesus, man. Nice one. Probably does look more bouncy here, to be fair. Did bounce off of the long-term liquid zone to the downside, which we have right here. And actually, let's draw this in a little bit more aggressively now that we actually have a range. So it'd be something like this. Did get a nice spike down into there, and that lines with the area, with the range lows pretty damn well. I'd be looking for this one to test the upside here, probably back up towards 395. Now, if it can close a 4 hour dildo, not above 395, hold on, let me change that, 396. If it can close a 4 hour dildo above there, I'd be looking for a move a little bit higher towards 405 short term. But still, lower highs as it is right now. Hasn't really broken the long-term range to the downside though. So so what would be this similar to like the 10,900-ish area for Bitcoin would be similar for Mr. Buteral at like 365, we'll call it. Actually more like 369, which is a better number anyways. So yeah, short term though does look like wants to test some upside, and does have some bullish divergence here as well. In fact, 1-2 stabs between this low and this low. So yeah, I'd actually be looking for this one to pop back up towards 394. And if that does happen, what does that mean for Bitcoin? It probably means that Bitcoin tests 11,500. So fair enough. Could I be wrong about short term looking downside for Bitcoin here? Could be. I don't think that really, destroys too much. But the same sort of area for Bitcoin, would be about 11,500-ish region. So fair enough. Maybe short term this one does pop back up here. Okay. All right. I actually think that does look a little more likely. Let's look at CMEs. Yeah, CME is getting a lot better of a bounce there too. Bouncing off of this, bounced off the bottom side of this blue box territory. Do we have any sort of divergences here? No, very interesting. Okay, very interesting. So we see those two guys disagreeing with each other. Let's just go. I suppose now we could actually go look at some other shitcoins. I'm curious if they have the same sort of thing going on. 4 hour for Litecoin, potentially forming. Potentially, I would not call that though. It's too unobvious. And usually, if you have to like squint your eyes towards something, it's probably not gonna be a good idea. Monero. What do we see here? Monero does not have it either, but looks like it wants to test probably around 90, just under 91 bucks. Ripple does have bullish divergence here as well in the 4 hour. Probably looking for another test back up towards 28, a little bit above 28 cents. Let's see, Neo is actually popping back up already pretty aggressively, and actually even putting a higher low here too. I guess Neo is the most healthy one, and hidden bullish divergence at the same point. So I'd be looking for this one to pop back up towards 18.25, maybe beyond. Tron, what do you see? What are you looking like? Nothing. What about Zcash? Slight regular bullish divergence, but it's already played out most of that move. Maybe a slight tap a couple bucks higher towards 78 bucks. But overall, I think that it's mostly played that one out. So let's go back on a Bitcoin over here. And you know what? Based upon the majority of what we see in the crypto sphere, I actually do think that the next move, probably short-term move, probably does come to the upside, probably 11,500-ish region. And I'd be looking for pushback there. If Bitcoin can close a 4-hour dildo above 11,500, I would look for extension, probably another, another like short-term move up to like 11,650 to 11,700. These are very tight margins here, probably not all that healthy, but anything below 11,700 is just another lower high. So, is long-term problematic. I do, however, I mean, technically speaking, I do still think that Bitcoin's actually more likely to test to the 10.9 level. If I'm just looking at this chart, if I'm just being completely honest and looking at this chart alone and nothing else but this chart, I would think that. But looking at the rest of the crypto sphere, it would look like bounce first and then probably test back down again. So I do think that it's a little bit too premature for me to say anything other than that. I would also like to say, as always, this is not financial advice, and I'm not a financial advisor. The furthest thing from it, and perhaps you might even say as well, just kind of sharing my views on this market as they are. So, if I did have to call this right now, if I'm just looking at Bitcoin, I actually do think that it comes down. But again, the market typically moves as one. So I'd probably be looking for next move short term to the upside at 11.5. Probably does push back from that area. Any sort of a closure below 11.5 doesn't really change anything. And still kind of operates in the greater range between about 11.5 and $11,000 base, or 10.9 if you want to say that. Above 11.5 or 11.5, especially 11.550, things do change a little bit on the lower term time frames, and I would extend that run another about a couple $100, but then you got to deal with this lower high right here. So things can change around, yes, but right now, if I had to call it, I'd be looking for short term up, probably gets pushed back down there, and then we play out the same range that we're looking at right now between about 11.4 and 11,000 ish region, with the same implications. Below 11,000, extremely likely a short term move to 10.5 with the big bounce there, with continuation implied below 10,000, probably down to fill the gap, probably somewhere around like 96 to 9,700 ish region. By the same token, to the upside, as long as we're below 11,500, there is problems, especially if we were to come into the weekly close. But that's still half a week away, so a long time for him to go. If the weekly does close below 11,500, I would be looking for the overall structure to crumble a bit more to those lower targets. If the weekly can close above 11,500, I'd probably be looking for the same range to play out between 11.5 and 12. To be honest with you, again, gonna be lining up with the monthly close as well. So I'd much rather wait for those such things, as they're going to have much more importance on the long-term timeframes. And right now, we've mostly just talked about, or mostly just spoken about, very short-term timeframe ideas. Let me quickly, very, 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 very quickly look at the probabilities for Bitcoin's ranges. So we'll do something like this. What ranges do we want to use? It's not really easy, I suppose. I suppose we could use 11,500 to the upside. It would be of interest on a daily closure, and I'll use 11,000 to the downside. 11,000 to the downside. There we go. And see what this populates, just out of curiosity. Okay, I must have written this wrong, because it says there's a 0% probability of closing above 11,500. But why, sir? But why? Did I write something in wrong here? No, I don't believe so. That's bizarre. Maybe I'll have to talk to Bali about that. It says literally 100% below target probability. I must be getting something wrong here. I haven't changed any settings, so that's strange. Let's try something else. Let's try what if I do 12,000 again versus 11,500? Like, what would that show? Yeah, looks like it might be broken right now. That's not changing it at all, so that doesn't really make much sense. We could look at the rings though, as those seem to still be working. And first deviation to the downside does show. Whoops. Oh, Jesus Christ, man! I'm on the wrong fucking asset. Oh my God. What a fucking moron. Jesus, man. Sometimes, do I even deserve to live? I don't know. Okay, so looking at 11,500, 35.71% probability for the upside on today's daily total closure, versus below 11,000 to the downside, just under 25% probability. So both of those are relatively high there, but more importantly, the downside is a relatively high probability, and it's much further away from our current price action now, isn't it? Yeah, that actually even be within the first deviation, of course. So looking at this right here, what does it suggest? It does. I mean, technically, it suggests that the probability is on the upside. Target there, 11,500, which would drive that next medium-term timeframe bias test I mean, somewhere between, somewhere around 11,750ish region. But for right now, does look more angled to the downside to me, just based off of the rings on this one. Looking at their slopes, they are massively angled to the downside. Looking at Ball and Pigs Moms, it is going to once again open up to the downside. And looking at the error correcting Ball and Pigs Moms, it does look like it's losing momentum, but it's again still very difficult to read. I haven't found a strong rhyme or rhythm for this one. Let's see if historical volatility percentile is saying anything on the lower term timeframes here. Expanding on the 4 hour to the downside, expanding on the hourly to the downside. What about on the daily? Daily is still contraction overall, so I think we'll leave it right there, man. I think we'll leave it right there. Special interest on 11,500, special interest on 11,000 to the downside, and 12,000 the upside. Those are long-term time frame ranges, with the medium-term time frame range split right in between at 11.5. Short-term time frame ranges, basically what we spoke about earlier in this video. And with that said, I'd like to leave you off right there. I'll be back on tomorrow with some more price action analysis. Take care, and until next time.